Caroline Faraday's here, broadcaster and journalist in Los Angeles. Caroline, very good morning to you.
Good morning. Yeah, good morning to you.
Good to see you. We've got some pretty stern and stirring pictures appearing both in still form and in video form from LA from last night. Amazing picture on the front page of The Guardian today of two guys, one stripped to the waist holding a Mexican flag, surrounded by flames and smoke. You can see some of the cars on fire there. The National Guard's in, there's Marines apparently on standby. What was it like overnight? What can you tell us?
Well, it's still, bear in mind, it's 20 to 11, so it's still nighttime here, and things are sort of winding down towards the end of the day. What they do towards the end of the day, that's when they sort of say, if you're out and about on the streets after this time, we're going to bust you off. So they sort of started to do that with the protesters that were still out. Right. But obviously, you know, these make very dramatic pictures. The thing to remember is these are in very small parts of LA. LA is massive. LA County has 10 million people. And the areas where the immigration raids are happening and therefore these tensions are escalating are very small areas, but very densely populated. Of that, there's about 1 million immigrants in LA County, and they are in these very densely populated areas. So yes, we have now got these kind of all these different politics playing out. We definitely didn't see today the sort of same levels of, I mean, that car there, that's one of those driverless Waymo cars that you can see. They've stopped sending their cars downtown for the time being, because a few of those were set on fire, and it wasn't, you know, a very safe place for their vehicles to be, because obviously quite vulnerable without a driver in them to start with. You know, rocks are being thrown mainly at federal vehicles that were coming in and out, and these tensions kind of being escalated. But yes, National Guard, it all kicking off between Trump and Newsom now, and it, of course, going into other cities.
Sure. We've got a little clip actually of Donald Trump criticising California Governor Gavin Newsom. Have a look.
I like Gavin Newsom. He's a nice guy, but he's grossly incompetent. Everybody knows. All you have to do is look at the little railroad he's building. It's about 100 times over budget. We're putting a flagpole over there. Under budget. I always do under budget.
Yeah, I mean, he talks about his railway all the time.
He doesn't like Newsom. He calls him new scum on Twitter, and the two of them have been kicking off on Twitter with and California now suing Trump because the way that the structure with the National Guard, and I'm sure you've covered this, but the structure with the National Guard is that the governor is supposed to request them, and it's supposed to come from the state, and it hasn't been since the 60s where the White House has kind of sent in the National Guard without a request from the governor. So this is all about, there's kind of other things at play that are all about the you know, who's got the power and kind of testing various powers here, as well as the drama of these protests.
Sure. I mean, I've seen people as well talking in sort of relatively sort of dismissive terms about these protests, saying, you know, we have riots in LA all the time. As you said, it's in a fairly small part of the town. It probably looks a lot worse than it really is if you live there. I've got a son that lives in Long Beach, and I said to him, how are you getting on? He's like, yeah, it's down where I used to work in South Central, but it's not really somewhere that is affecting like the tourism or much else that's of daily business in the city.
Yes, but I'll tell you what it is affecting. It is affecting migrants. So listen, whether you've got sympathy or not for those people, this is the way that they live their lives, and they have done for decades. You know, some of these people will have been brought over when they're babies by their parents. They are educated in this country. They have jobs. They pay taxes. And that is part of the community. So suddenly what's happening is people are seeing their neighbours being taken away by immigration authorities, whereas in the run-up to the election, they were told that Donald Trump's immigration crackdown was going to be on criminal immigrants. You know, it is now becoming a crackdown on people who are here without the right documents. And those things are seen as two very different things, because those people who are undocumented, they work really hard and they pay their taxes, and they are thriving parts of the community. As your son will know, if you come out to Los Angeles, you know, in the same way that in the UK that you have an Indian restaurant on every corner, you have a Mexican restaurant on every corner and a taco stand, and it is very much part of the fabric of this city. And this city is reliant on immigrants to work, for it to work. So, you know, those people that you're seeing out protesting, those aren't the people that are being stopped. They are their friends and neighbours saying, we don't want this in our community.
Yeah, and that all sounds very reasonable, and you're right. I mean, I lived in America for 10 years, and the immigration problem in America is nothing like the same as it is in this country, where because of everybody has to work because they don't really have a choice, and so they create, as you say, that community. But nevertheless, it's pretty difficult, I suppose, for anybody in authority to allow that kind of lawlessness to go on unpunished, and now they're just kind of making it worse, really.
Yeah, it's a really difficult situation. I've heard sort of lots of leaders and the local leaders saying, hold on a minute, all we were doing was going to work, and then these vehicles and armed people came into our communities, and that definitely is going to flare up tensions. And that really is where a lot of this is coming from, because now there's this fear that, of course, it is going to escalate and go to other cities. Bear in mind, of course, cities are generally going to be more Democrat, and then rural areas are going to be more Republican. That's how it is. In general, that's a big generalization, but in general, so that you are going to look and see, you know, flare-ups now in cities. You know, you're getting New York now and Dallas now and Austin and these Democrat cities that are perhaps in red states, where there can be this, you know, could be the same thing now happening, and that's where it could get escalated.
Sure. We'll keep an eye on it. Caroline, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Caroline Faraday, broadcaster and journalist in Los Angeles. She says these things are spreading. But the trouble is, of course, Chloe is here with us now. The problem is as well that, you know, when you start getting people rioting, it's not always the people who are actually right in the middle of it who are rioting. It's the people who like rioting who are rioting. You know, I mean, there might well be lots of immigrant communities who are very unhappy about, members of ICE coming in to deport them. However, they're probably not the ones setting fire to cars. You know, the people setting fire to cars are the same people that set fire to cars during Black Lives Matter and all of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there are some
provocateurs.
young'uns, shall I say, who just like a bit of a muckabout with petrol bombs and whatnot, and kick this all off. And I understand the frustration of people who may have gone out just with a placard to do a peaceful protest, which, you know, they've got freedom of speech, they're in their right to do so, and then they get caught up in all of the rest of this. I do think, though, that Trump was right to send in the National Guard, and I do think Gavin Newsom did need to be showed who is boss, and that law and order is important in the United States. Gavin Newsom said that it was cruel that Donald Trump had 100 and something people arrested, which I don't think is that many by ICE. And he needs to learn. I'm sorry, but you're not the president, Gavin Newsom. Donald Trump may be the governor of California, but Donald Trump is in charge of the country, and you cannot allow this lawlessness to go on and to call it cruel when simply the law is being enforced.
Right. And if you've got a load of people who are working in the state and are paying taxes and all of that, but they shouldn't be there because they came illegally, you know, they have to do something about that. You can't just continue to live in a country illegally and continue to pay taxes and continue to work there if you're undocumented, you know, and I think most ordinary people would say the same thing.